Hi everyone, welcome to Edna's Munchies. Today we're going to do banana bread. So before we start anything, we're going to start with the oven. So the oven, I have mine at 125. Remember that all ovens are different. My old oven used to be 150. The recipe says 160. So keep an eye on your oven. Go according to your oven. Okay everyone, as we are all going through this season, this recipe is good to teach the children as well. You can work with the children because we'll be doing like a crumbly base, and this is good to teach like home economics and maths, so the children will learn how to weigh stuff and measuring stuff. So this is a great way to introduce maths to your children. So we're going to start with, we have 2 bananas, we have 125 grams of self-raising flour, 100 grams of margarine, 1 egg, 3 tablespoons of milk, 100 grams of 175 grams of sugar. I have reduced it to 150 grams. We have cinnamon and mixed spices. We have 50 grams of dark chocolate and 50 grams of milk chocolate. So this is the variation that I'll be using today. So the next thing, I'll be showing you how to chop the chocolate, because instead of chocolate chip, I find the shredding the chocolate it works much better. It suspends better in the butter, because I found with the chocolate chips it sinks to the bottom. So I'll show you how to chop it. So if you chop it as small, even if there's big pieces, it doesn't matter, because it just adds character to the cake or to the bread. So we have cut it this way. Now we make the pieces smaller by just chopping it like this. We don't want it too fine, because we want to see the pieces of chocolate on the thing. Please be careful with the knife if children are with you in the kitchen. Yeah. Okay, so for this we need a scale. This scale I can keep going back to 0, so that helps. I'm gonna use a pastry cutter, but if you don't worry, just use your fingers. It's just because I don't like the batter in between my fingers. You need a whisk. I'm gonna mash the banana with a potato masher. You can use a fork, a wooden spoon, and a spatula, and 2 bowls. So I have already measured everything. So we start by mixing the flour and the butter. And the intent here is to create breadcrumbs. Okay, the idea is to create breadcrumbs consistency like this. So if you're doing with your fingers, the consistency is the same, but you use your fingers, rubbing the flour and the butter together. So I'll be adding the sugar and do a bit of a mix. And I like mixing cinnamon with mixed spices. The recipe doesn't ask for it, but in our house we love cinnamon, and adding the mixed spices just adds a bit more extra depth to the cake. But if you don't like cinnamon, just leave it out. So 1 teaspoon each. And just mix it. So for this cake, there's many variations you can do. I'm doing chocolate. I mix the dark chocolate and the milk chocolate, so it's not too sweet. But you can add 100 grams of oats. You can add sultanas, or for our house we don't like sultanas, so we can do cranberries. Or you can leave it all out, just add the banana and the spices. So it's up to you how you want it. Just go by what your family likes. That'll make a huge difference. So we have the breadcrumbs consistency, and this is perfect. Now the next bit is the banana. We start with the banana. I use the masher instead of a fork, and don't make it like puree because it's nice to have bits of banana showing in the cake as well. So I have 3 tablespoons of milk, and the goodness with this cake just requires 1 egg. So if you have family and friends around, usually I bake a lot of those and I can freeze it. This cake freezes really well, and when you need it, you just take it off the freezer the day before. I can do a baking session on this when I ask around for Asia bananas, or maybe it's a way of blessing someone with a nice cake. So this cake doesn't need a lot of mixing. So there's no electric tools on it. So that's the goodness with this. And then mix it. Don't over mix it. That's why we don't use tools in this one, because otherwise you make the mixture quite tough and doughy. So the idea is just to mix everything. So that's all it needs. So I'm using a loaf tin, and I find it like for this small tin, I use this. Usually can buy it in the pound shop or any supermarket. Usually they have it, and it just makes easier with cleaning. As you can see bits of chocolate and bits of banana.
We like to point out that there's no waste. We like to get all the good bits.
I don't like wasting. So there's one more trick I do with this particular banana cake, because we like the crunchy bits. The crunchy bits are the best, and usually if we could make this cake just with crunchy bits, that's what I've done, because usually we fight for it in the house. I use demerara sugar. So it's just a tiny bit, you don't need much, just a bit to sprinkle on the top. And that just adds to the crunchiness of the cake. That's all you need. So this will go in the oven for an hour and a half, depends on the oven. Another trick with the oven I'm going to teach you is, when you put the oven on, just because the light comes on doesn't mean the oven is hot. That's the key of warming up the oven. 15 minutes. So once you decided to bake and you switch on the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes, because when the light goes off, it only means the heat in the oven is hot, but the actual oven itself is cold. Another thing, when you're putting cakes in and out of the oven, never bang the door. The same thing, you never bang the tin, because what's happening is all the air that, okay, this doesn't have air to begin with, but any air that is already in the cake will collapse. Hence you get the concave in the middle of the cake when it's cooking. So even if the cake is not cooked and you take it out, as long as you put it on the stove slowly and then put it back in again, not banging the oven, because once you bang the oven, you're releasing hot air and cool air gets in. You're breaking up the bubbles that are making the cake nice and fluffy. So that's a trick for you to remember. Okay, here it comes, and ta-da! So this is the size we made, and this is my family size, because to be honest, that won't last a day in my house. So just a quick note before I carry on. As you're home at the moment with extra time, I suggest that if you have time, you could like try to do a recipe book for your family. So this is mine. As you can see, there's loads of stuff in it. This is second edition. It needs a third edition to tidy up a bit. So I have all sorts. Some of them worked, some didn't. But my family, when they need a recipe like for their favorite waffles and pancakes, whatever, I just send them to the book so they can sort it themselves out. But yeah, so all my family favorite recipes are in this book, and it just helps. I don't know who is gonna get the book yet, so it depends who's cooking the most. So this is the recipe, and as you can see, you can double it up. So with the small tin, you can actually put 3 at the same time in the oven. So that's it. So the big cake is 2 batters. So now I'm going to cut the cake to show you inside. I'll cut a big one. I have let the cake cool overnight in the rack, so you can see exactly how it looks. So this is why I cut the chocolate, so you can see that it's suspended evenly through the cake or through the bread. So this one, you can freeze it and you can eat it anytime you want. We like it warm, or custard is even better, or just cake with a nice coffee is perfect. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it and you have as much fun doing it as I had showing it to you. Stay safe, stay blessed, and have a good day. Bye.